From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is The Hub with Wang Guan.
Hello and welcome to The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. In a recent move, U.S. President Donald Trump has once again brandished the tariff stick. On Monday, the White House has reinstated the full 25% tariff on steel imports and increased the levies on aluminum imports to 25% as well. And these tariffs will be imposed, quote unquote, without exemptions or exceptions. Donald Trump also announced that he would soon impose reciprocal tariffs that could affect just about every country. How has top U.S. businesses reacted to this move? How will consumers and the business community at large be impacted? And at the end of the day, who will really foot the bill? CGTN's Jim Spellman reports from Washington, D.C.
With the stroke of his executive action pen, U.S. President Donald Trump rolled out new tariffs Monday.
Today, I'm simplifying our tariffs on steel and aluminum so that everyone can understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from.
Hardest hit will likely be U.S. neighbors Canada and Mexico.
We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs. But we'll also be working with our international partners and friends. And if it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear. We will stand up for Canadian workers. We will stand up for Canadian industries.
Also hard hit by the new U.S. tariffs will be major trading partners Germany, Brazil, and the Republic of Korea. The new tariffs could provide a boost for U.S. steel and aluminum companies, which have called for protection against cheap foreign metals. It will likely, though, mean higher prices for raw materials used in a broad range of items from soda cans to cars.
That's going to cause higher input costs for the manufacturers, and we're concerned about the downstream effects on consumer products, in our case, like automobiles. And the consumer doesn't want to absorb that. That's going to have a back push on demand, which causes bigger problems down the line with regards to production cuts and job losses.
Trump has also promised broad-based reciprocal tariffs, raising duties on goods imported to the U.S. to match those placed on U.S. exports to other countries.
These reciprocal tariffs likely would mean higher prices for Americans because most of our trading partners have higher tariffs on our goods than we have on theirs.
The new tariffs on steel and aluminum are slated to go into effect March 12th, so there's still some time for negotiations. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Washington.
Now to delve deeper into this topic in New York, we have Anthony Chen, former chief economist at Morgan Chase. In Los Angeles, we have William Li, chief economist at the Milken Institute. And in our studio in Beijing, I'm pleased to be joined by Liu Baocheng, dean of the Center of International Business Ethics at the University of International Economics and Business. Gentlemen, welcome to the discussion. So great to see you again. Let me go to you first, William. Aluminum and steel. This all sounds and looks too familiar, right? April 2018, we all remember that during Trump's first term in office. I broke that story basically when Trump initiated the tariffs of steel and aluminum against countries including China. Why aluminum and steel all over again this time?
Well, as we said last time, the steel and aluminum industries have key important national defense as well as strategic purposes. And the key is to be able to produce that domestically. Now, over time, the U.S. was once the largest steel producer in the world and also aluminum. But over time, it has lost that position because other countries have become more efficient, have used newer technologies. And U.S., I think, needs to feel the ability to come back to somewhere near where it was before for purposes of diversifying the supply chain and ensuring that for national defense purposes, we have steel making and aluminum making capacity in the United States. The tariffs do that job because it has embedded within the tariff production subsidies to subsidize the production of steel in the United States and to raise revenues for the government. So the tariff seems to be a good instrument to do a multifaceted set of goals, and President Trump has favored using tariffs rather than direct subsidies, the way other countries have.
All right. Anthony, how has the business and investor communities been responding to Trump's tariffs and tariff threats against countries, not just necessarily rivals, but some of America's closest allies and partners?
Well, what we have seen so far is that a lot of business people, including some business people that are big supporters of President Trump, have complained that somehow the uncertainty of these tariffs is impacting their ability to plan for the future. Remember that a business has to plan several years into the future. And so if you have tariffs going on and off every week or every month, that's very difficult to make plans with regard to supply chains and things like that. I agree with William that the United States has a severe interest in trying to increase the production of steel and make sure that it's available for national security purposes. But the reality is that the steel industry in the United States has lost its edge. I remember in the 1940s, the United States was responsible for 50% of all the steel production in the world. Now it's less than 5%. So the numbers have come down dramatically. And then, of course, you have to ask the question, if we impose these tariffs, are we going to see more steel plants being created? And I think we're not going to see more steel plants. In fact, even our steel plants today are operating at less than 75% capacity. Maybe that will go up a little bit, but these tariffs are not going to lead to more steel, significantly more steel production, in my judgment.
All right, let me ask our old friend, Professor Liu Baocheng here in Beijing. Donald Trump said when it comes to these tariffs, there will not be any exception or exemption. But soon enough, he called the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on February the 11th and said the U.S. is considering exempting Australia when it comes to steel and aluminum tariffs. Because Australia is willing to make certain concessions. So are all these tariff and tariff threats a way of Donald Trump to extract concessions from countries and partners?
Yes, I would think so. It seems that Trump has been in such an obsession with regard to tariff. He thinks that anything the U.S. pays for is doing a privilege to the importers, and now he used the tariff magic wand. But right now, I do not think he is really taking into consideration of geopolitical issues, whether it's normal trading partners, whether it's allies. He's just cares about his direct and domestic policy issue, and he's strongly supported by the interest group like Milken in the steel industry. And now he's taking far less regard to any type of international relations or bilateral relations, and even Canada and Mexico within the free trade agreement, he doesn't really pay much attention to. So as our friend said, he's just considering to take more of the money into the federal coffer and then shift more of the cost on the consumers and benefit certain interest groups. So of course, he is also trying to push for other deals. But the issue is, or the irony, is that he doesn't even know what type of deal he really wanted to construct with major trading partners like China, like Australia, like Canada. So he just wanted, that's his typical negotiation style. And then now I give you a punishment, at least defined by him, and then it is up to you to come up to terms by guesswork of what he exactly wants.
On China, 10% tariffs has been threatened, thanks to his executive order. Steel and aluminum, again, 10%, not as much as 25%, if you think about Mexico or Canada. We remember back in 2018, there has been this prolonged tit-for-tat response from Beijing, very stern and resolute. What can we expect this time?
Well, China is among all the victims of such a sort of tariff, but the impact on China is really marginal because over the years, with all the 301 and also with the 232 clauses he has been using to address the Chinese import of aluminum and steel, China has been vaccinated quite a lot. So therefore, we over the years we have diversified our market, and now we are shifting more of the into the Belt and Road countries for infrastructure construction and export of those equipments, etc. And so China remains as competitive. If you compare the cost level of the workers in the steel industry, China is the 6 times more advantageous than that of the United States. And plus, that if you visit Cleveland, you can only notice the
Ohio.
And also Ohio, yes, in Ohio, because my son studied in Case Western, and then you only see the steel dust along the roadside, but you do not really have a lot more of the steel factories. You have more of universities, hospitals, and museums. So the U.S. industry has completely converged onto such a stage has to share with the rest of the world. So no tariff doesn't really work towards its strategic objective.
Now, William, let me turn to you. I mean, not everyone is a big fan of Trump's tariffs, obviously. For example, earlier on, Ford CEO Jim Farley said Trump's moves have so far added, quote unquote, a lot of cost and a lot of chaos to American businesses. For as much as external revenue the tariffs may have temporarily brought to the U.S. coffer. What do you think?
Well, let's remember the objective of using tariffs is not just merely to make economic objectives and to help Ford. President Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico because he wanted them to be serious about closing the border, stopping the flow of illegal immigrants and illicit drugs into the United States. And that was really the main objective behind the use of tariffs, is to get people to be serious about other policy objectives. Yes, the tariffs have made it very inconvenient for the automobile industry because they are the main users of imported steel and aluminum. But I think for the national objectives in mind that President Trump had, which, by the way, includes international engagement. He, in his Davos speech, made it very clear he welcomed foreign investment. His strategy for improving the steel industry is not through tariffs, but it's through foreign investment. The deal that he's making with Nippon Steel, for example, is a good way to infuse new technology into the steel industry. So President Trump really is using the tariff as a tool to bring negotiations to the table and get serious about negotiations, and get serious about other policies that are hurting the United States and trying to do something about that, but also to infuse new technologies and new capital into the sectors in the United States to make it more competitive again. So tariffs are just one of many tools that he's using in a multifaceted strategy for achieving different objectives, both foreign policy, immigration, as well as economic objectives.
Well, points accepted, William, but are there successful precedents or cases during Trump's first term in office whereby he used these maximum pressure campaigns? What you're saying is not a rash or impulsive decision, but a calculated move for larger strategic and priority issues like border and immigration. Are there successful cases previously?
I think that's what differentiates the Trump 2.0 from Trump 1.0. Back then, President Trump was really a very narrow focus in trying to achieve economic objectives. And right now, he's very clearly come in with an agenda and very rapidly putting in place that agenda, which is very, very wide-ranging and multifaceted. So it's a different, we don't see precedents of that in the first Trump administration, because I think he learned his lesson that he has to use this very powerful tool to achieve more than just economic objectives.
Anthony, how do you look at this? I mean, William is suggesting that it's, of course, a trade-off, using economic and trade tools at the disposal of the U.S. president to force and pressure partners to do what the U.S. wanted. But what about the consequences and negative impacts to businesses and consumers, of course?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with William, because the president is trying to reach those non-economic objectives. And maybe a lot of people can argue that they're laudable goals and they're important and they should be achieved. But there are consequences. I mean, the Ford CEO did say that these tariffs can blow a hole through the profitability of the auto sector. Mary Barra, CEO of General Motors, said that they would really have to undertake strategic maneuvers, and even then, they could probably only dodge 50% of the damage from the tariffs. But William is correct. The president is not out there to help Ford or help GM. He's out there to help the United States. But in the process of doing that, there are going to be collateral damage, including the U.S. consumer. The Milken Institute, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan think tank, estimates that if we get these 25% tariffs, it will hit the average household to the tune of about $1,800 per year. And we know that's regressive because the upper income individuals, it's not really much damaging. But if you look at somebody at the lower income or somebody in the middle class levels of income, those households are going to be hurt quite a bit. So, yes, I don't disagree that the goals are something that seem reasonable, but the collateral damage is also pretty severe.
What do you think, Professor Liu? Do you want to respond to our previous guests?
Well, I have a slight different idea because since he assumed office, the first round of 25% against Canada and Mexico, and also the 10% against Chinese imports, was really to address the immigration issue, to address the inflow of fentanyl. Whether it's a groundless or not, that's a different story, but that's over. Canada and Mexico responded. China also responded with retaliation, and now this round is really targeting steel and aluminum. That's more of economic consideration, and now the issue lies whether it's really going to help the U.S. industry. Already there has been a protest from the downstream industries like even the canning industry, even the auto industry and the kitchen knife. Also, when you really talk about strategy or a security issue, so you can also relate everything to national security issue. If steel is there, but steel is there can make weapons. It can also make kitchen utensils, refrigerators, and kids' toys. And now, if you talk about the garment industry, the boots can be made for normal wear, footwear, and also can also be used for the military boots. So therefore, there's no limit to further stretch such sort of issue. But the real issue is that he's now doing a sort of trick that he is collecting more of the money from the supply chain and paid by the importers into the federal coffer, and then eventually the consumers will have to pay. So that's the trick. As for global partners, they can diversify their market. They can come up with more of the retaliative measures, and so in the end, people will find that U.S. still needs import. That's the comparative advantage at work. So artificial distortion of all the supply and demand equilibrium, eventually, the instigator will pay the bill.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what would be the wisest and best policy approach that China should follow?
Well, for China, I should say China continue to remain harmed because we have gone through so many the rounds of the countervailing measures, anti-dumping measures, safeguard measures, etc. So we should really be there to stay with more of the strategic patience because when during the first round he's talking about fentanyl issues, but China does make fentanyl, but that's for dual use. And now, if you the U.S. Most recent report says 96% of the inflow comes from the Mexico. So and it has been dealt with the two major traffic cartels. So they have to deal with that, and China also works very closely and also effectively with the United States in the working group to deal with the money laundering and to deal with the drug trafficking. So therefore, the ground based on China producing fentanyl, actually we are doing it legally, and to level the 10% tariff is totally groundless. And so therefore, China should be there to continue to engage dialogue I do not really welcome the fact that China will do the tit for tat at the moment, because you do not know what is next under the sleeve of Donald Trump. We can really stay and watch.
William, you're shaking your head.
Well, I love how Professor Liu has these conspiracy theories. I love conspiracy theories, so I applaud him for being so inventive. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that President Trump made it very clear to the executives at Davos, the United States welcomes foreign investment. And the deal with Nippon Steel is a good example where he said, I don't favor the purchase of Nippon Steel, of U.S. Steel by Nippon Steel, but I do favor their investment in putting new technology and improving the job prospects for American steel workers. And I think that's really the use of a tariff. The tariff provides Nippon Steel with a 25% subsidy if they produce in the United States, but if they choose to be a competitor rather than be a partner with the United States, they will face a 25% tariff. So that makes the choices much easier for them to say, I will invest in the United States. The use of tariffs, as I said, is to achieve a whole wide range of objectives, and it's not the conspiratorial world that Professor Liu is working on to say that President Trump just wants to generate revenues. Through the use of tariffs.
With all due respect, Professor Liu is a respected scholar. I mean, in China and around the world. Professor
I agree,
Liu,
and I just told you, I love how
Yeah.
I love how inventive he is.
But whether it's really the true intention, but the actual fact is as such that tariff as a tax just go to the tax collector, which is the federal government. And who is going to, in the end, pay the bill? It is really all the downstream players, and eventually it's really consumers. A certain portion is borne along the entire supply chain. So that's one issue. The other issue is that competition is the best driver for innovation. So therefore, if you really offer more of the protection measures, and all the industries will feel lazy, and they have less drive for innovation. So that's the real issue. And the U.S. used to be very strong in that regard, and they are spreading the whole world, and they're also transforming their industrial structure based on globalization. But right now, if you select this type of industries,
you pick winners and losers.
That's right. So now by driving away the competition, and the workers will be more there to demand, and also the distribution will have sort of a monopoly within the domestic market, and that doesn't really help anything to improve the innovation.
Anthony, I'll go to you, but William, can you have a quick response, maybe 20 seconds before we go to Anthony?
Sure. I think one thing you have to remember is that President Xi did a program of Made in China 2025, where he picked successfully a lot of winners. And we're just taking a page out of President Xi's playbook to say that we will try to subsidize the industries that we feel are important to try to rebuild their capacity in the United States. So we really are copying China in terms of providing subsidies to key industries.
Well, my friend, if you remember Solyndra, right, the California-based solar company that got billions of dollars of subsidies from Obama administration, Obama picked a loser, unfortunately. That's the unfortunate affair of life. That happens in life. Anthony, what do you think will be the long-term consequences to the global supply chains and the global trading system, right? I mean, this is not just unilateral tariffs you impose on the European Union, Canada, China, countervailing duties against the U.S. But at the end of the day, WTO is not fully functioning right now. But eventually, there has to be some rules and regulations down the road on a global scale.
No, I agree. The World Trade Organization doesn't have the strong enforcement mechanisms that they had before. That has been taken away from them. But at the end of the day, I think most economists will tell you that comparative advantage always wins. And I think that when you impose these kinds of tariffs, you kind of disrupt that. And so I have no argument with the goals that William is talking about. But when you just bring it down to economics, I still feel that the comparative advantage is the best way to go. That is, those countries that can produce products a lot cheaper should be producing them, and those that have less efficiency should be producing other products that they have comparative advantage. But again, It's controversial because of national security issues and because of other goals that are non-economic that have to be brought into the picture. But just keeping economics on the forefront, I would say let comparative advantage rule.
I totally agree because, for example, China grows soybeans, but we import a lot more from the United States, Brazil, Argentina, soybeans. So the U.S. can continue to produce steel and aluminum, and they can continue to import steel and aluminum depending on different type of usage and depending on different type of quality and also price scheme. So that's the way, how the world can really work based on globalization and also comparative advantage.
William, to what extent should we still be believers of the comparative advantage theories that is first, of course, taught and initiated and populated by Western economists?
When I taught Columbia University's International Economics course, I reminded everyone that in the simple economics model, the comparative advantage is given, God-given. But in the real world, comparative advantage is dynamic. It is produced by policies. And China and the United States have both used subsidies, and Europe, to try to shift dynamic advantage into sectors that are considered strategic and important to have because it benefits its people. And decades of subsidies in Europe, decades of subsidies in Asia and the United States have shifted dynamic advantage to the point where comparative advantage now is a policy tool. And it takes a long time to shift comparative advantage, but that's what countries have done, and China has done very successfully.
Any final word, Professor Liu?
Well, I should say that to address subsidies, you can use the right type of law and to deal with countervailing duties. And to address the real national security, you can also use the 232. But now, having a blanket of sort of punishment based on emergency, and also it's there to achieve more of deals from other countries to take initiative to place on the table of the White House, and that's not really legally justifiable.
Professor Liu, Anthony, and William, thank you so much. We learned a lot. Join us again, please. We look forward to having you all again very soon. And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our news coverage continues. Bye and take care.